The morning sun was just starting to shine through the dusty windows of Rodriguez Auto Repair when Maria heard her father cursing in Spanish again. She looked up from her college textbooks, knowing that tone meant trouble, big trouble. "Papa, what's wrong now?" she called out, closing her engineering book and walking toward the main garage bay. Her father, Carlos Rodriguez, stood hunched over the hood of what looked like the most beautiful car Maria had ever seen. It was a sleek red sports car from the 1960s, the kind you see in old movies where rich people drive along coastal highways. Even covered in dust and grease, it was stunning. "This thing," Carlos muttered, wiping his hands on an oil-stained rag, "is going to be the end of us." Maria had been coming to the shop every day after school since she was little. Now 19 and studying engineering at the community college, she still spent most afternoons here, doing homework at the front desk, while her father and his two mechanics worked on cars. The shop had been in their family for 25 years, ever since her grandfather started it with nothing but a dream and a toolbox. But things had been getting harder lately. The big chain repair shops downtown offered fancy waiting rooms, free coffee, and quick service. People didn't want to wait for quality work anymore. They wanted fast and cheap. The Rodriguez family shop was struggling to keep the lights on. "What kind of car is it?" Maria asked, running her hand along the smooth red paint. "Ferrari," her father said with a heavy sigh. 1967 Ferrari 275 GTB, worth more money than we'll see in our whole lives. Maria whistled softly. She'd read about these cars in her automotive magazines. They were legendary. "Who owns it?" "Richard Blackstone," Carlos said, and Maria recognized the name immediately. Everyone in town knew Blackstone. He owned half the commercial buildings downtown, including the lot where 3 other repair shops had tried to compete with their family business before going bankrupt. "He brought it here yesterday," Carlos continued. "Engine completely dead. Won't even turn over. Says 3 other shops already looked at it, including 2 Ferrari specialists in the city. They all said the same thing. Impossible to fix." Maria frowned. "Then why did he bring it here?" Her father's expression darkened. "He says he heard we do good work, wants to give us a chance, but I think he's setting us up to fail. When we can't fix it, he'll have proof that we're not good enough. Then he can tell everyone in town that even the Rodriguez shop couldn't handle a real challenge." The front door chimed, and Maria looked up to see Richard Blackstone himself walking, and he was a tall man in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than their family made in a month. His silver hair was perfectly styled, and his shoes shined like mirrors. "Good morning, Carlos," Blackstone said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "How's our Ferrari project coming along?" Carlos straightened up, trying to look confident. "Still working on it, Mr. Blackstone. These old engines, they need time and patience." "Of course," Blackstone nodded. "I understand completely. Though I have to say, I'm curious. The Ferrari specialists in the city have been working on Italian cars for 30 years. They said the engine damage is so severe that fixing it would cost more than buying a new Ferrari. Are you sure you want to take on something that big?" Maria watched the conversation, feeling the tension in the air. She could see what was happening. Blackstone wasn't here to get his car fixed. He was here to watch them fail. "We Rodriguez men don't give up easy," Carlos said firmly. "Give us 2 weeks. If we can't fix it, no charge." Blackstone's smile got wider. 2 weeks? That's very generous. But what if I told you I'd pay double your normal rate if you can get it running? And if you can't, well, at least you tried your best." Maria's father nodded, but she could see the worry lines on his face getting deeper. 2 weeks to fix what the experts said was impossible, for a family shop that was already struggling to pay the bills. "Actually," Blackstone said, looking around the garage, "I notice you have help." His eyes landed on Maria. "Is this your daughter? The one I heard is studying engineering?" "Yes, sir," Carlos said proudly. "Maria's the smart one in the family, going to be an engineer someday." Blackstone walked over to where Maria stood next to the Ferrari. "Engineering, eh? What do you think of our little puzzle here?" Maria looked at the engine bay. Even without opening it up, she could see oil stains and hear the silence where there should be mechanical sounds. "I think every problem has a solution," she said carefully. Sometimes you just have to look at it differently. Blackstone laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. Look at it differently? Young lady, this engine has been examined by some of the best mechanics on the West Coast. The internal damage is so bad that the engine block itself might be cracked. We're talking about precision machinery from Italy, not some pickup truck engine you can patch with duct tape. Maria felt her cheeks burn, but she kept her voice steady. Yes, sir. I understand it's complicated. Complicated doesn't begin to cover it, Blackstone continued. But you know what? Since you're so confident, why don't we make this interesting? If your father's shop can fix this engine in 2 weeks, I'll not only pay double the rate, I'll recommend you to every wealthy car collector I know. Your family will never worry about money again. Carlos started to speak, but Blackstone held up his hand. But, Blackstone continued, his voice getting colder, if you can't fix it, then you'll publicly admit that this job was too big for your little family shop. You'll tell everyone in town that some repairs should be left to the real professionals. The garage went completely quiet. Maria could hear her father's breathing, see the sweat starting to form on his forehead. This wasn't just about fixing a car anymore. This was about their family's reputation, their livelihood, everything they'd worked for. And just to make it really interesting, Blackstone added with that cold smile, why don't we let the engineering student here take the lead? After all, she seems to think every problem has a solution. Maria's heart started beating faster. She looked at her father, whose face had gone pale. The 2 other mechanics, Tony and Miguel, had stopped working and were staring at them. Everyone in the shop knew what this meant. If they failed, it wouldn't just hurt their reputation, it might destroy the business entirely. Mr. Blackstone, Carlos began, my daughter is still learning. She's not ready for something this advanced. Oh, but she said every problem has a solution, Blackstone replied. Surely someone studying engineering would love a real-world challenge, unless, of course, she was just talking big. Maria felt anger rising in her chest. She knew what he was doing. He was trying to trap them, to force them into a situation where failure was almost guaranteed. But looking at her father's worried face, at the shop that had been their family's life for so many years, she made a decision that would change everything. I'll do it, she said quietly. Maria? No, her father started, but she held up her hand. I'll take the challenge, she said louder, looking directly at Blackstone. 2 weeks to fix your Ferrari, but I want the terms clear. If I succeed, you pay double rate and recommend us like you said. If I fail, we admit this job was too big for us. Deal? Blackstone's eyes lit up with satisfaction. Deal, he said, extending his hand. I'll be back in 2 weeks to see how our young engineer did with her first impossible task. After he left, the garage stayed quiet for a long time. Finally, Carlos put his hand on his daughter's shoulder. Mija, what have you done? He asked softly. That engine is destroyed. Even I can see that, and I've been doing this for 30 years. Maria looked at the Ferrari, her mind already starting to work. Papa, remember what Grandpa used to say? The impossible just takes a little longer. This isn't about taking longer, Tony called out from across the garage. This is about physics. You can't fix what's completely broken. But Maria was already opening her engineering textbooks, pulling out her laptop, getting ready to research everything she could about Ferrari engines from 1967. She had 2 weeks to prove that sometimes, looking at a problem differently really could make all the difference. What she didn't know yet was that this Ferrari held secrets that would shock everyone, including the man who had brought it to them. And those secrets would turn a simple repair job into something much bigger and more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The challenge had been accepted. Now the real work would begin. That first night after accepting Blackstone's challenge, Maria couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with everything she knew about engines and everything she didn't know about Ferraris. At 3 a.m, she gave up trying to rest and crept out to the garage. The shop felt different at night, quieter, more peaceful. The red Ferrari sat under a single work light, looking almost alive in the shadows. Maria pulled up a chair and just sat there for a while, studying the car like it was a puzzle she needed to solve. What her father and Blackstone and everyone else didn't know was that Maria had been accepted to MIT 2 years ago. Not just accepted. They had offered her a full scholarship to study mechanical engineering. But when her family's shop started struggling, when her father began staying up nights worrying about paying the bills, she had made a choice. She deferred her admission and stayed home to help. During those 2 years, while working at the shop during the day, Maria had been taking advanced engineering courses online. Not the basic stuff they taught at community college, but real university level, classes from some of the best schools in the country. She studied late into the night, learning about metallurgy, thermodynamics, and precision manufacturing techniques that most mechanics never heard of. She had also discovered something amazing about herself. While other people saw engines as collections of parts, Maria could picture them in her mind like three-dimensional puzzles. She could visualize how every piece connected, how power flowed through the system, where stress points would develop over time. It was like having X-ray vision for mechanical systems. But this Ferrari was different from anything she had studied before. This wasn't just a broken engine. This was a piece of automotive history, hand-built by Italian craftsmen who treated each car like a work of art. Maria opened her laptop and started researching. She found technical manuals, restoration guides, and forum discussions from Ferrari enthusiasts around the world. She learned about the specific challenges of the 275 GTB model, the common failure points, and the techniques that restoration experts use to bring these engines back to life. By sunrise, she had filled 3 notebooks with information and had a plan. The next morning, her father found her already working under the hood of the Ferrari. "Mija, you've been here all night?" Carlos asked, concern in his voice. "I couldn't sleep," Maria admitted. "But Papa, I think I understand what happened to this engine." She showed him her notes. "Look, everyone who examined this car before us was looking for normal wear and tear, bad gaskets, worn pistons, that kind of thing. But the damage pattern here is weird. It's not random." Carlos leaned in closer. "What do you mean?" "The damage is too perfect," Maria explained. "Like someone knew exactly where to hit this engine to make it fail in the worst possible way. And look at these metal shavings I found in the oil pan. They're not from normal engine parts." Her father frowned. "You think someone did this on purpose?" "I think this engine was sabotaged," Maria said quietly. "And whoever did it wanted it to look like natural failure so no one would investigate." Over the next few days, Maria worked with an intensity that surprised everyone in the shop. She carefully removed every part of the engine, photographing and cataloging each piece. She found more evidence of the sabotage, tiny metal particles that had been deliberately introduced into the oil system, designed to slowly destroy the engine from the inside. But here's where Maria's unique skills came into play. While other mechanics might have seen irreparable damage, she saw patterns. She could visualize how each damaged part had originally functioned, and more importantly, she could figure out how to reverse the sabotage. Using techniques she had learned from aerospace engineering courses, Maria began fabricating replacement parts. The shop's basic equipment wasn't designed for the precision work needed on a Ferrari, but she found creative ways to make it work. She used dental tools for fine detail work. She modified a jewelry maker's torch for micro-welding. She even ordered specialized polymer compounds online that could seal microscopic cracks in metal. Tony and Miguel, her father's other mechanics, watched in amazement as Maria performed repairs they had never seen before. "Where did you learn to do that?" Miguel asked one afternoon, watching Maria reshape a damaged piston using techniques that seemed almost magical. "YouTube," Maria lied with a smile. She couldn't explain about MIT or the advanced courses without revealing that she had given up her dream school to save the family business. By the end of the first week, Maria had made incredible progress, but she had also made a discovery that changed everything about the case. While cleaning out a particularly damaged section of the engine block, she found something that shouldn't have been there. Hidden in a sealed compartment behind the engine, wrapped in waterproof material, was a small metal container. Inside the container were documents, old photographs, financial records, and a letter that made Maria's hands shake as she read it. The Ferrari hadn't belonged to just any collector. It had originally been owned by a man named David Chen, an accountant who had discovered financial crimes involving several prominent businessmen in the city. Chen had been planning to expose them, but before he could go to the authorities, he had died in what appeared to be a car accident. The documents showed evidence of embezzlement, tax evasion, and fraud involving millions of dollars. Companies had been destroyed, families had lost their life savings, and it had all been covered up. The Ferrari had been Chen's insurance policy, a place to hide the evidence where no one would think to look, and one of the names that appeared over and over in the documents was Richard Blackstone. Maria sat in the quiet garage holding papers that proved Blackstone was a criminal. Suddenly everything made sense. He hadn't brought the Ferrari to be repaired, he had brought it to be destroyed. The impossible repair challenge was just a setup. When they failed to fix it, he would have the car scrapped, and the evidence would disappear forever. But now Maria faced an impossible choice. She could finish repairing the engine and say nothing about what she had found. Her family would get paid, their reputation would be saved, and life would go on. Or she could expose the truth and risk everything. The problem was she had no proof that Blackstone knew about the documents. Maybe he really had just inherited the car and didn't know about its secrets. Maybe she was wrong about everything. That night, Maria made copies of all the documents and hid them in her own safe place. Then she went back to work on the engine, her mind racing with possibilities. Over the next few days, something strange started happening. Blackstone began showing up at the shop more often. He would make excuses about checking on progress, but Maria noticed he was always asking specific questions about how deep into the engine they had gotten, whether they had found anything unusual, if there were any surprises hidden in the car. He's nervous about something, Maria told her father one evening. The way he asks questions, it's like he's fishing for information. Maybe he's just worried about his investment, Carlos suggested. That car is worth a lot of money. But Maria wasn't convinced. She started paying closer attention to Blackstone's visits. She noticed how his eyes would dart around the garage, how he would find excuses to look closely at the disassembled engine parts, how he would ask about their disposal methods for damaged components. Then, on Thursday of the second week, something happened that confirmed all of Maria's suspicions. Blackstone arrived at the shop in the afternoon earlier than usual. He seemed agitated, nervous. Instead of his usual confident smile, he looked worried. "Carlos," he said, "I've been thinking about this whole project. Maybe we should call it off. I'll pay you for your time, but I think the car might be too far gone to save." Maria looked up from where she was working. The engine was almost completely rebuilt. In fact, it was running better than it probably had when it was new. Why would Blackstone want to stop now, when they were so close to success? "Actually, Mr. Blackstone," Maria said carefully, "we're almost finished. The engine should be ready for testing tomorrow." Blackstone's face went pale. "Tomorrow? Are you sure? Maybe you should take more time, be extra careful. I wouldn't want you to rush and miss something important." That's when Maria knew for certain. Blackstone didn't want the Ferrari fixed. He wanted it destroyed, and he was running out of time to make that happen. "Don't worry," Maria said with a smile that she hoped looked innocent. "We've been very thorough. We've examined every single part of this engine, every hidden corner, every secret compartment. We haven't missed anything." The color drained completely from Blackstone's face. He started to say something, then stopped, then started again. "Secret compartment?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "What do you mean by that?" Maria's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "Oh, just the usual places where debris can hide in old engines. Nothing interesting." But she could see in Blackstone's eyes that he knew she had found something. And now she knew that he knew exactly what had been hidden in his Ferrari. The game had changed completely. Tomorrow, when she fired up that perfectly restored engine, she would have to decide what to do with the most dangerous secret she had ever discovered. That night, Maria couldn't focus on anything. She kept thinking about the documents hidden in her room, about Blackstone's scared face when she mentioned secret compartments, and about the choice she had to make. Her family's entire future hung in the balance, but so did justice for all the people Blackstone had hurt. She decided to do some research on David Chen, the original owner of the Ferrari. What she found online made her stomach sick. Chen had been a respected accountant who worked for several major companies in the city. 3 years ago, he had started asking questions about missing money, unusual transactions, and fake business expenses. According to the news articles Maria found, Chen had scheduled a meeting with federal investigators for a Monday morning in March. He never made it to that meeting. His Ferrari had crashed on a mountain road the Friday before, going off a cliff in what police called a single-vehicle accident. Chen died instantly. The car was so badly damaged that investigators couldn't determine if there had been mechanical failure. But now Maria knew the truth. Chen had hidden evidence of massive financial crimes in his Ferrari, and someone had sabotaged the engine to cause that crash. The same sabotage that had slowly destroyed the engine over time, making it look like natural wear and tear. The next morning, Maria arrived at the shop early to find Blackstone already there, pacing nervously in the parking lot. Her father wasn't due for another hour, and Tony and Miguel didn't start until 8. "Maria," Blackstone called out as she unlocked the front door. "I'm glad you're here. I wanted to talk to you about the Ferrari project." "Sure, Mr. Blackstone. What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday about examining every part of the engine. You mentioned secret compartments. Did you find anything unusual?" Maria's heart started beating faster, but she tried to keep her voice calm. "What kind of unusual things would you expect to find in a Ferrari engine?" "Oh, nothing specific," Blackstone said, but his eyes were intense, searching her face for any sign that she was hiding something. "It's just that old cars sometimes have modifications, hidden features, things the previous owner might have added." "I see," Maria said. "Well, we were very thorough. We documented everything we found." Blackstone's face went rigid. "Everything? What kind of documentation?" Maria realized she had made a mistake. She was giving away too much information. "Just standard repair photos," she said quickly, "for the work order." But Blackstone wasn't buying it. He stepped closer, and for the first time Maria felt actually afraid of him. "Maria, let me be very clear about something," he said, his voice completely different now. Gone was the fake friendly tone. This was the voice of someone used to getting what he wanted through intimidation. "That Ferrari has been in accidents, been through multiple owners, been sitting in storage for years. Sometimes old cars contain things that don't belong to the current owner. Things that could be misunderstood if taken out of context." "I'm not sure what you mean," Maria said, but she was backing toward the shop door. "I mean," Blackstone continued, following her, "that if you found anything that wasn't automotive parts, it would be best for everyone if those items were simply disposed of, forgotten about. You understand?" Now Maria was really scared, but she was also angry. This man was threatening her, trying to cover up crimes that had destroyed other families just like hers. "Mr. Blackstone," she said, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded, "I think you should wait for my father to arrive before we continue this conversation." "Your father doesn't need to be involved in this," Blackstone said. "This is between you and me. You're a smart girl, Maria. Smart enough to understand that some things are better left alone. Smart enough to know that your family's business depends on having good relationships with important people in this community." The threat was clear: cooperate or lose everything. But just then Carlos's pickup truck pulled into the parking lot. Blackstone immediately stepped back and put his fake smile back on. "Good morning, Carlos," he called out cheerfully. "I was just telling Maria how impressed I am with the progress you've made on the Ferrari." Carlos looked between Blackstone and his daughter, sensing the tension. "Everything okay here?" "Everything's fine, Papa," Maria said. Mr. Blackstone was just eager to see the finished engine. "About that," Blackstone said, "I've been thinking we might want to take a different approach. Instead of trying to restore the original engine, maybe we should consider a complete replacement. I'd be willing to pay extra for a modern engine that would be more reliable." Carlos frowned. "But Mr. Blackstone, Maria has already rebuilt the original engine. It's running perfectly. Better than new, actually." "I'm sure she's done excellent work," Blackstone said quickly. But authenticity isn't as important to me as reliability. Sometimes it's better to start fresh than to try to save something that's too damaged. Maria understood what was really happening. Blackstone wanted them to throw away the original engine, the engine that had contained the hidden documents. He was willing to pay extra to make sure those documents disappeared forever. Actually, Maria said, the original engine is ready for testing today. Would you like to hear it run? Blackstone's jaw tightened. That's not necessary. I trust your work. But you came all this way, Maria pressed. And you challenged us to fix the impossible. Don't you want to see the results? Her father looked confused by the conversation, but he sensed something important was happening. Maria's right. We're proud of this work. You should hear what we accomplished. For a moment nobody spoke. Then Blackstone nodded slowly. Of course. I'd love to see what you've accomplished. Maria led them to the Ferrari. The red paint gleamed under the shop lights and the engine. Bay looked perfect. Every component had been carefully restored or replaced. The engine that 3 Ferrari specialists had declared impossible to fix was now a masterpiece of precision engineering. Would you like to do the honors? Maria asked, holding out the key. Blackstone took the key, but his hand was shaking slightly. He got into the driver's seat and turned the ignition. The Ferrari roared to life with a sound like silk wrapped around thunder. The engine purred with perfect smoothness, every cylinder firing in perfect harmony. It was the sound of mechanical perfection of art brought back to life. Carlos grinned with pride. Tony and Miguel, who had just arrived for work, whooped with excitement. This was the kind of repair that mechanics dreamed about, the kind of work that built reputations. But Blackstone looked sick. Incredible, he said weakly. Just incredible. You actually did it. Maria did it, Carlos said proudly. I've never seen anything like it. She had techniques I never heard of, tools I never knew existed. She brought this engine back from the dead. Blackstone turned off the engine and got out of the car slowly. Well, he said, I suppose a deal is a deal. Double payment, as promised, and I'll definitely be recommending your shop to others. But Maria could see the calculation in his eyes. He was already planning his next move. There is one small matter, Blackstone continued. During the restoration process, did you dispose of all the old parts? I want to make sure there's no environmental contamination from old fluids or damaged components. We keep detailed records of all disposal, Carlos said. Maria documented everything. Excellent, Blackstone said. I'd like to review those records, make sure everything was handled properly. You understand, for insurance purposes? Maria realized that Blackstone was going to keep pushing until he found out exactly what they had discovered. He couldn't risk leaving without knowing for sure whether the documents had been found and what had happened to them. Of course, Maria said. I have all the documentation in my office. Would you like to see it now? That would be perfect. As they walked toward the small office at the front of the shop, Maria made a decision that would change everything. She had spent 2 weeks bringing a masterpiece back to life, proving that the impossible was just another word for challenging. Now it was time to prove that some things were more important than money or safety. Actually, Mr. Blackstone, she said, stopping just outside the office door. Before I show you the disposal records, there's something else I think you need to see. She pulled out her phone and showed him a photo. One of the documents she had found hidden in the engine compartment. Blackstone's face went completely white. For a moment, Maria thought he might collapse. Where did you find that? He whispered. The same place David Chen hid all the other evidence, Maria said quietly. The same evidence that's going to put you in prison for the rest of your life. The game was over. Now the real battle would begin. The silence in the garage stretched on forever. Blackstone stared at the phone in Maria's hand, his face changing from white to gray to almost green. Behind them, Carlos, Tony, and Miguel stood frozen, not understanding what was happening, but sensing that something huge was unfolding. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Blackstone finally whispered. That man, Chen, he was trying to destroy legitimate businesses. He was a troublemaker who didn't understand how the real world works. The real world where you steal millions of dollars from hard-working families, Maria asked, her voice stronger, now that she had committed to this path. The real world where you kill people to cover up your crimes? I never killed anyone, Blackstone snapped, then immediately looked like he regretted saying it. Chen's death was an accident, a tragic accident. An accident that happened 3 days before he was supposed to meet with federal investigators, Maria said. An accident caused by engine sabotage that you arranged. Carlos stepped forward, his face full of confusion and growing anger. What's she talking about, Blackstone? What's this about killing someone? Blackstone looked around the garage like a trapped animal. Maria could see him calculating, trying to figure out if there was still a way to control the situation. Carlos, your daughter has gotten involved in something that's none of her business, he said, trying to sound reasonable. She found some old paperwork in the car, documents that belong to me now. She doesn't understand what they mean. I understand perfectly, Maria said. She pulled out copies of the most damaging documents from her jacket pocket. These show how you embezzled money from the Henderson Construction Company before it went bankrupt. How you created fake consulting fees to steal from the Wilson family's restaurant chain. How you've been running this scheme for over 5 years. Carlos took the papers from his daughter's hands, his eyes widening as he read. My God, Maria. This shows he stole over $3 million. The Wilson family, they had to close all. Their restaurants, people lost their jobs, their life savings. Just like we almost lost our shop, Maria added quietly. Tony and Miguel had moved closer, and Miguel was reading over Carlos's shoulder. This guy destroyed dozens of businesses, Miguel said, his voice full of disgust. Families just like ours. Blackstone's friendly mask was completely gone now. His face was hard, calculating, dangerous. You people have no idea what you're playing with. I have lawyers, connections, power in this city. If you try to use those documents against me, I'll destroy your little shop and everyone in it. Like, you destroyed David Chen? Maria asked. Chen was an idealist fool who didn't know when to mind his own business, Blackstone snarled. Just like you. The admission hung in the air like poison. Everyone in the garage now understood that they were dealing with a murderer. But Maria had been preparing for this moment all week. The thing is, Mr. Blackstone, I'm not as naive as you think. Before I confronted you today, I made copies of everything. And those copies are already in the hands of people who know exactly what to do with them. Blackstone's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Maria pulled out her phone and showed him a sent email. FBI field office, local police department, and 3 different news stations. I sent everything this morning before you arrived. You stupid girl, Blackstone hissed. Do you have any idea what you've done? I tried to handle this quietly, tried to give your family a chance to walk away rich and happy. Now you've ruined everything. Carlos stepped protectively in front of his daughter. Get out of my shop. Get out now before I do something I'll regret. But Blackstone wasn't leaving. I'm not going anywhere until I get those original documents back. All of them. They're in a safe place, Maria said. Somewhere you'll never find them. Blackstone laughed, but it was an ugly sound. A safe place? Do you mean your house, your school locker, your boyfriend's apartment? Maria, I know where you live, where you go to school, where you spend your time. I can make problems for you and your family that you can't even imagine. That's when something snapped inside Carlos. Maria had never seen her father truly angry before, but now his face was dark with rage. Are you threatening my daughter? Carlos asked, his voice deadly quiet. I'm explaining reality to your daughter, Blackstone replied. She's made a very dangerous mistake, and now everyone in this garage is going to pay for it. But before anyone could respond, they heard the sound of car doors slamming outside. Through the garage windows, Maria could see black SUVs pulling into the parking lot. Looks like my reality check just arrived, Maria said with a smile. Blackstone spun around and saw FBI agents in bulletproof vests approaching the garage. His face went from angry to terrified in seconds. You called them? He whispered. Actually, said a voice from the garage entrance. She called us 3 days ago. Everyone turned to see a woman in a dark suit walking into the garage, followed by several federal agents. She held up a badge. Agent Patricia Reeves, FBI Financial Crimes Division. Mr. Blackstone, You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and the murder of David Chen. What happened next was like something from a movie. Blackstone tried to run, but there were agents positioned at every exit. He tried to claim the documents were fake, but Maria had already provided detailed explanations of where she found them and how they connected to Chen's murder. As they put handcuffs on Blackstone, Agent Reeves walked over to Maria. "Ms. Rodriguez, I have to say your timing was perfect. We've been investigating Blackstone for 2 years, but we could never find solid evidence. When you sent us those documents along with your analysis of the engine sabotage, you gave us everything we needed to build a case." "You've been investigating him for 2 years?" Carlos asked. "David Chen wasn't the only person who suspected Blackstone's crimes," Agent Reeves explained. "But Chen was the only one with access to the financial records that could prove it. When he died, we thought the evidence died with him. We never imagined he had hidden it in his car." Maria watched as they loaded Blackstone into one of the SUVs. Just before they closed the door, he looked at her through the window. Even in handcuffs, his eyes were full of hate and promises of revenge. "Will he be able to hurt us?" she asked. "Agent Reeves, Richard Blackstone is going to prison for the rest of his life," the agent replied. "The evidence you found connects him to crimes going back a decade. He won't be hurting anyone ever again." After the FBI left, the garage was quiet for a long time. Carlos, Tony, and Miguel just stood there, trying to process everything that had happened. "Mija," Carlos finally said, "what you did today, it was incredibly brave, but it was also incredibly dangerous. You could have been killed." "I know, Papa," Maria said softly, "but I kept thinking about all the families he destroyed. About people like us who lost everything because of his greed. Someone had to stop him. But why didn't you tell me what you found? We could have handled this together." Maria looked at her father. This man who had worked so hard his whole life to build something honest and good. "Because I knew you would try to protect me. You would have told me to stay quiet, to not take the risk. And maybe that would have been the smart thing to do. But it wouldn't have been the right thing." Over the next few weeks, the story exploded across the news. Maria found herself giving interviews to reporters, explaining how she had solved an impossible engine repair and uncovered a murder conspiracy at the same time. The story went viral on social media, with people calling her everything from the teenage detective to the miracle mechanic. But the real miracle was what happened to Rodriguez Auto Repair. The publicity brought customers from hundreds of miles away. People wanted their cars fixed by the shop that had taken on the impossible and won. Business was so good that Carlos had to hire 3 more mechanics and expand into the building next door. Maria also got a phone call that changed her life. MIT called to offer her immediate admission with a full scholarship, plus a research position studying automotive forensics, using mechanical analysis to solve crimes. For the first time in 2 years, Maria had a choice. She could go to MIT and pursue her dreams, or she could stay home and help run the family business that was now more successful than they had ever imagined. "What do you want to do, Mija?" her father asked. "I want to do both," Maria said. "MIT has agreed to let me do a combined program. I can study there during the school year and come home to work in the shop during summers. And my research project will be developing new techniques for automotive forensics. I'll be learning cutting-edge engineering while helping solve crimes." Carlos smiled, the kind of smile that comes from pure pride and joy. "Your grandfather would be so proud. He always said the impossible just takes a little longer. And sometimes," Maria added, "it leads to something even better than you imagined." 6 months later, the Ferrari 275 GTB was sold at auction to benefit victims of financial crimes. It brought in more money than anyone expected, partly because of its perfect restoration, but mostly because of its incredible story. Maria was there when the new owner started the engine for the first time. It purred with the same perfect sound. It had made in her father's garage the sound of something broken made whole again, just like her family's business, just like justice for David Chen, just like the impossible dreams that become possible when someone has the courage to try.